Have any of you guys changed yourself to like relate to your white coworkers, where you're like, I really don't have anything that aligns, but when we go out to happy hours, guess what? I'm gonna act like so and so, or I'm gonna jump in on this conversation. I have no idea really what they're talking about because I want to be able to relate to my coworkers. And do you feel like people who are not Black have to do that?
Yeah. Um, Even take, for example, like just little conversations to get to know each other when everyone's like, oh, like what's your favorite show or what's your favorite like movie? I have go-tos because I know if I said my true ones, you guys will not know what it is. Like I love Insecure so much, but I'm not talking about Insecure to most of my team because I know that that's not the show that they watch. So I would revert to maybe a show that, like my go-to movie is Titanic, which I do love Titanic. However, is it my favorite movie? No, it isn't.
Okay, ladies, let's move forward. Now, we have the interview process. We got the job. We're in here. Once you've been at work for a little while, let's just say 3 to 6 months, after you got past the ramping period where you're figuring out shit, do you feel like you can be your authentic self at work?
I'm always my authentic self at work.
But Brea, have you always been? Because I don't want you to speak from the point of, oh, well, I've been doing this for 12 years. I know what the fuck I'm doing. So if they don't like it, they don't like it.
Like I've always been my authentic self at work, and it has gotten me into some hot water. I have lost a job or two in behind it, but I've made more strides than steps back in doing it. And I'm incredibly unapologetic. Obviously, I'm very respectful and tactful, but I don't code switch or anything like that. I don't bite my tongue. The way you see me come into that interview is an authentic self, and that's what you're going to get until the day that I leave. And that's just how I've always been.
Yeah. So during the interview, Carol and I both said that we have to be this upbeat person to let them know that, hey, we're safe, we're friendly. And I am friendly, but usually I'm pretty laid back. So in the interview, I'm extra upbeat, but still myself, right? When I do get the job, I try to keep that same energy because, hey, you hired me because of what you saw in the interview. So I kind of want to make sure I'm that same person that you hired. But at the same time, it's not my authentic self, right? It's my work self. It's like somebody else at work that's safe that you interact with, but outside of work, I might have certain things that I say and do that you may not understand, like culture-wise, that I think comes over time.
Yeah, I would say that's a tough one. I think it depends on the workplace. I think it depends on your coworkers and your managers, because if you don't feel that you have the space to be your authentic self and that it could be taken the wrong way, then you continue to be that. It's like you're still interviewing, even though you've been in the role for like a year or 2 years, you're still that work self, and maybe not even your true work self, but like the buttoned up version of your work self. My previous company that I worked for was a hardcore men's club, old boys club kind of a thing. And anytime I was my authentic self, it would like backfire on me. And it was extremely frustrating to just try to be a Black woman surrounded by all these white men making decisions. And so I think it really depends on where you are and who's on your team. Now I definitely feel like I could be my authentic self, but in that situation I felt like I became less authentic because I was just trying to play a role to keep a job until I could find something else and like get out of that situation.
Stephanie, we haven't heard from you in a while. Are you your authentic self at work?
It comes out in bits. I agree with Siham. The more I feel comfortable with the people I'm working with, a little bit more of myself I show. It's all about, I'm trying to show them I'm a safe person to be around them, but then I'm kind of figuring out or they're a safe place for me as well. So little by little, I show a little bit more of myself, and you know, maybe let loose a little bit of what it's like to be Black in America, depending on who I'm working with. But it comes out piece by piece.
Exactly. That is what I was going to say. And I don't know if authentic is the right word, because yes, I'm like true to myself and like in the skills that I bring, right? But in terms of like, I'm always very aware of my surroundings and the people there. And again, like how I am being perceived and like what I am showing. So if I get 3 to 6 months is still the time where I'm still figuring everything out. I'm understanding like the culture of the team and like the personalities on the team and what you can say to some people if you're like vulnerability, if you can open up to some people and how they'll take it. I think 3 to 6 months is still pretty early. So it's definitely where like if I'm feeling closer to somebody, then yes, like we could go ahead and like talk. But there's still some people where it's like, okay, I need to be like on guard and just be like my work self and focus on work. Sometimes you don't have to mix work and personal, is what I believe.
I agree with Carol. And sometimes I'm usually the only Black person in every company almost that I've worked on. And it feels like, hey, I need to carry this, like, so they can hire more Black people. I need to like have this burden of like representing basically every Black person that might interview in the future. So you kind of have to just walk this really fine line. I also know what I can get away with, what I can't. Just because somebody else is speaking their mind in a meeting doesn't mean that I can speak my mind in a meeting, because I have to be mindful. Like they're going to perceive it differently when I say it versus someone else says it. The same way how I perform is not going to be the same as somebody else. So I'm kind of aware of that already by now. So I know how I have to do it versus how other people might do their work and get away with certain things. I know that I can't get away with it, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense. To me, it basically just sounds like not necessarily that it's like kind of halfway being your authentic self, because you can speak your mind in a meeting. You just have to strategically place your words where it comes out a certain way so they get it and they're not more worried about your delivery than actually the message that you just sent. And so I feel like I have to do the same thing, because most of the time people are more worried about the delivery, which is not always the best, because I'm just worried about what I'm trying to get across, and especially in more heated situations or things that are going to be going to someone higher level. It's like, hey, like this is important and you're not looking at it that way, or we're about to miss the mark on this. And so when leadership comes back with these questions, like we need to be able to answer them. And so I feel like I've gotten feedback that it was like, oh, well, that person's feelings were hurt. And it's like, I don't give a fuck if their feelings were hurt. We're about to get grilled by leadership if this is not done correctly. So why are you guys not worried about me, worried about us delivering results, and more worried about this person's feelings over here? Like we should be worried about why they're not delivering results, but you're more worried about how I delivered my message. So I do feel like it's not necessarily not being your authentic self. It's just being strategic about the way you say things, so you can still get done what you want to get done and not have to be worried about getting backlash as, oh, well, you were being this or you were being that, and that becomes a focal point and not actually like what we should actually be worried about.
Yeah, it's almost like our authentic self they don't understand, so we have to reinterpret it in the way that they understand. So it's almost you're speaking a different language. I speak 4 different languages, so I totally see it that way. Like you don't understand me, so I have to speak your language, but that's not me, right? That's not my language, so I'm speaking your language at this point.
Right. Okay, ladies, so let's go to the next question. Before that, I was asking you guys about the authentic self question because I was reading, I always research before we do these panels, and it was saying something like 77 or 75% of people say that they are not their authentic self at work. So 3 out of 4 people that you guys talk to at work are being fake as fuck with you, just to let you know. 3 out of 4 people, that's crazy. So I don't know. Maybe they're doing the half step like us, like they're kind of, but they're not. But yeah, it said 75% of people are not their authentic selves at work. And I was like, okay, I guess that's a part of the game though. The face.
That might be a good thing though, right? Do we want to do we want people to be like lashing out and be there? You know what I mean? People are like behaving their best at work, but outside of work, they might actually be jerks. So sometimes that might be a good thing, right? Depends.
I think it depends on how you look at it. I guess it depends. It depends. I guess I don't like the idea of like 75% of the people that I talk to being fake. Like, because I don't like dealing with fake people. But I guess if you're on your best behavior, I guess it just makes it more easy to deal with since most of your time is spent at work. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
It makes me wonder, I would just want to know their motives. Why are they being fake? Are they trying to be professional? Like, you know, like sometimes we may have to kind of button ourselves up so that we appear more professional when we want to tell somebody off and, you know, say it the right way. Or are they being fake because they're shady? Are they trying to be your friend because they want to steal your ideas? Or are they trying to be your friend, or they're being fake because, you know, they support that person in the White House right now? You know, those kinds of things. Like, that's what my concern would be. If you're being fake because you think it would be best for you to not hurt your career, or are you trying to like undermine people and hide evil in you, kind of a thing? That's what I would wonder.
Sorry, one more thing is I think we should also the culture might not be accepting of who people are. Like, so let's say, for example, what you just said, if they do support the person in the White House, the culture might not make it okay for them to say that, because they will get somebody will lash out at them or pick on them. They might even stop talking to them. I know people at work that do support the person in the White House, and they've said to me, like, I can't say that at work because people will not have that dialogue with me. You know what I mean? Like, just that we can disagree, but we could also be ourselves at work without feeling like someone is gonna either not accept you, or even, I don't know, it might even hurt your career. And I think it's just that environment is not accepting for people to be themselves.
I agree. And I also, Stacie's point is interesting to me too. Like, are you covering up something that is evil? Because when you think about corporate America anyways, it's mostly white or Asian. And so it's like, are they being fake at work because they actually don't want to deal with other groups of people? Because they are the majority there. Are they being fake toward accepting diversity, acting like they want diversity, but they actually don't because it's a culture thing? Yeah, I didn't think about that until Stacie brought that up. Like, oh, if this many people are being fake, are they actually covering up something else? As for us, we're talking in a space of like, we just don't want to put people off. We want people to actually try to get to know us, give us the time to get to know us before we become our authentic selves or show them our authentic selves. So it's a safety thing for us to let them know that, you know, we are people type of thing. But for someone else, if you're the majority, why are you being fake? That's something I need to think about longer.
Yeah, and I think kind of what I said is, it's kind of showing how our world is coming. I equate that person with racist and bigotry and all the bad things, where I do realize that there could be people out there that support him but don't feel that they're racist or anything like that. And so I think that what you called out is good as well. They should be able to express their support if I'm expressing my support for the opposition. I just, again, worry about where their motives are coming from. That's all.
Right. Okay, ladies, so time to switch gears a little bit. Have any of you guys changed yourself to like relate to your white coworkers? Like, have you ever been in situations where you're like, I really don't have anything that really aligns with this group of people, but when we go out to happy hours, guess what? I'm going to act like so-and-so, or I'm going to jump in on this conversation. I have no idea really what they're talking about because I want to be able to relate to my coworkers. And do you feel like people who are not Black have to do that?
So, yeah. Even take, for example, like just little conversations to get to know each other when everyone's like, oh, like, what's your favorite show, or what's your favorite like movie? I have go-tos because I know if I said my true ones, you guys will not know what it is. And most of you guys are not watching Nigerian movies on the regular basis. Most of you guys do not watch Black dominated movies or shows. Like, I love Insecure so much, but I'm not talking about Insecure to most of my teammates because I know that that's not the show that they watch. So I would revert to maybe a show that, like, my go-to movie is Titanic, which I do love Titanic. It is a great movie. Everything about it is great. However, is it my favorite movie? No, it isn't. But that's just what I have to say. Just because it's easy and everybody can like relate to it. So little things like that. Like, yeah, I have my set answers for things like that.
That's hilarious. I love it. Titanic is always safe. You know, it's another safe one, like Forrest Gump. That's a really and I love Forrest Gump, so we could definitely go in on that one. But that's another safe one. Just FYI, if you want to switch it up from Titanic, you can say Forrest Gump. I don't know. No, I don't. To answer the question, somebody asked me what's my favorite movie, I'm probably gonna say Coming to America. And if they ask me like, oh, what's that? I would be like, I'm gonna pull out my phone because I got it downloaded and we're gonna watch a scene, of Coming to America. And so for me, like, I think it's more about like evolving and learning, not necessarily like changing myself or adapting. So about 10 years ago, I lived in like a very rural town in Southern Oregon. And I've never been like a water person, like I'm not a swimmer and I just never really got into like, jet skiing and rafting and all of that. But that's a big thing in Oregon, like to be on the river. And so in the summers, that's what my white colleagues did. They invited me to, their boat homes and to grill out and then go out and raft. And that was totally outside of my comfort zone. I don't think I changed myself to include myself in those activities. Rather, I learned so much. Like I learned how to fly fish out there. And now I love being in the water and on the water. That's a passion of mine. So it wasn't like changing myself. It was more so allowing myself to grow and evolve and learn and to educate too, because, I think everybody should watch Coming to America at least once in life. That's just my opinion.
Agreed.
It's a great movie. I love that movie.
That is a good movie. Yeah, I don't feel like I have to watch the same shows as my coworkers. I've been in those situations where everybody's talking about Bachelorette or Game of Thrones, and if I'm not into those, I just don't force myself to watch them, and I'll be in the conversation, but I just won't. I don't know. I don't feel like I have to watch certain shows to fit in with the rest of the people. I'll just be myself and say I don't watch the shows, but I'll still listen.
So if they ask like what your favorite show or movie is, would you say?
So my favorite movie is Friday, and it depends where we are in our work relationship, right? If it's like, if I feel like they'll get it, I might say it, but if I feel like they won't, I might not. So yeah, it depends.
I feel like that's not, I don't have issues relating to what they're watching. I don't watch things like The Bachelorette, but my sister's like a huge reality TV fan, so I feel like I know enough to where I can like BS my way through a conversation. And even just watching like pop culture stuff, you get like little hints of like TV shows. And you can be like, oh, that's that show, and you can be really vague, and then they just take over the conversation because they really just want to talk anyways. My issue, and I don't know if you guys have the same issue, the same problem, is them trying to relate to me and like thinking of what is a Black thing that I can talk to her about, and assuming that because I'm Black, I must watch this show or I must like this thing. And I feel like they're being inauthentic and making assumptions, or maybe I'm not looking at the right way and maybe they're just trying to relate to me. But that's the part that I encounter when I'm sitting at happy hours, or I've even seen it happen to other people. I went to a happy hour with some folks from India, and one of my white female coworkers just starts naming off all of the Indian people that she follows on Instagram or knows about. And I'm like, you can have a normal conversation with them. You don't have to just pick out stuff that you assume they're gonna want to talk about. Like, just talk and let the conversation be natural. So that's the part that I don't like, is we can just talk to me like you would talk to me if I was a white coworker, don't act like you have to put on this front, and then we can find common ground somewhere in the middle. And maybe you can open my eyes and maybe I can open yours. But as soon as you're like, oh, so yeah, I was watching Chris Rock the other day, I'm going to be like, well, why do you assume I want to talk about Chris Rock? Are you asking Ashley about Chris Rock? No, you're asking me about Chris Rock because I'm Black and you think all Black people like Chris Rock, regardless of if we do or not.
Right. That's when it becomes kind of cringeworthy. Oh, I know this Indian actress and actor, and oh yeah, Bollywood. Like, okay, nah.
It was super embarrassing. I was just like, I kept trying to steer the conversation away and she kept bringing it back. She was like, oh yeah, Priyanka Chopra. And I'm like, can you just stop? Like, please. Talk about something normal.
Okay. So moving forward, ladies.
Similar
Like
experience.
looks. Oh, sorry, Carol. What'd you say?
Oh, sorry. I've kind of had that similar experience where when people find out I'm Kenyan, they're like, "Oh, I went on a mission trip to like Uganda or whatever African country they want to bring up," and it's so awkward for me because, like, as most of you guys know, African countries are so different. Like from coast to coast, they're so different. So when they're telling me about this other country, or they think I will know about it, I'm like, I don't know about that country. Yes, I know that it exists, and I know I might have friends from there or something, but why are you bringing this up? This is so uncomfortable for me, and there's no relation. Like Kenya and South Africa are very different countries, and we cannot talk about this. So I've had that too, Stacie, where I'm like, oh, let's just not.
It's like if they tell you they're from, Switzerland, do you suddenly start talking about how you love to travel to England? No, you realize that they're two different places. And so you would just be like, tell me about Switzerland. You wouldn't try to assume that all of that is the same and they can explain all of Europe to you. You would ask about that specific place. And that's the piece that's missing.
Exactly. Like I would prefer if I could see it's genuine and they could be like, hey, tell me more about Kenya, or when was the last time you were there? What food do you guys eat? How like stuff like that, where it's more genuine rather than from the perspective is I just want to relate to you. So here's like a random fact of my mission trip 10 years ago or whatever, where I went for a month and a half and here's a picture of the kids I took pictures with. Like it's just very uncomfortable for me.
Yeah. Ugh. So let's move forward. Do you guys feel that looks play a role in how far you get at work? Like, and I mean like, as in like getting stretch assignments or, promotions. And looks could be racial background, or looks could be if you come to work and you're suited and booted like Brea used to have to be in certain positions. Do you think looks play a role in how far somebody can get at work?
I think both looks and personality, but also personality, right? Like the person they're trying to, or they end up promoting is someone that they have a relationship with or someone they get along with. They might promote them over you. So that connection, and usually it's not a Black person. I think it's like really hard to establish that. So I've seen that happen personally.
Had you asked me this like 10 years ago, I would have said, oh, of course. Like just the old school way of like sales, like being in sales, like you never really came across like quote unquote like unattractive sales people. That's kind of a part of, I hate to say it, but it's kind of a part of the job because you are customer facing and, you're expected to look a certain way. So you couldn't even get in the door if your appearance was sloppy or your hair was disheveled or, you were a mess, like you needed to keep it buttoned up, every single day. But now I feel like just the industry, like not the industry, but rather the career field is changed drastically. I guess, maybe if you were looking to be promoted and it would look good for said hiring manager to promote a person of color, maybe then because you look obviously like a person of color, you are a person of color. maybe you would be kind of first in line for that. So that would be more of an aesthetic and just appearance. But as far as my career field is concerned, I don't think so. It's some very unattractive salespeople that I work with.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it depends on the industry. Like in tech, I don't think it matters if you're super attractive or if you're not. I think there's other factors that build into it. I do agree with Siham where I believe personality somewhat is a part of it, or just maybe more like networking and camaraderie. But in terms of like physical aesthetics, at least in tech, I'm not sure, but I would lean towards no in physical aesthetics.
So my previous company was a 100-year company, very conservative. And it was the message was always, you dress for the next part or the next role you want. So if you wanted to get into upper management, if you wanted to be in a certain area, you, in your current role, you had to dress and appear to be already in the role that you wanted to be in. And so that's, when I think of your question, that's what I'm thinking of, like dressing for the next role you want. The current job I'm in now, everybody comes to work in jeans and sweats, and it's all about what you know and all about your expertise and what you can bring to the organization that takes you to the next level. And so I really think it depends on the culture of where you're at, on whether looks or appearance is a determining factor.
So being that I'm in tech as well, I kind of agree with Stephanie. Yes, we wear jeans and sweats and nobody's like, there's no dress code, right? But I do know that they are judging you on how you present yourself. So the people that I've seen promoted don't dress like everybody else. They dress a little bit more like maybe a collar shirt. Even the women, like they dress a little bit like more presentable. They're not coming in with like t-shirt and tennis shoes every day. And I think that does make a difference because they perceive you a certain way. Like if you're dressing a shirt versus a t-shirt, I think it does make a difference. So I had to like change the way I dress eventually from t-shirts to like wearing shirts because I just felt like you are being judged based on how you dress.
And that I agree with because yeah, I know like again how I want to be presented is I'm going to like dress not so casual. I'm still going to like present well and everything. So I agree with Siham in that aspect, even in tech.
I think so too. And I was asking because, of course, back to my research, a lot of ladies were saying that they would get feedback like, oh, well, and someone outside of my research, a friend at work was telling me that they were holding her back from promo and they kept bringing up polish. You need to be a little more polished. And so anytime we had meetings, this was my team prior to the one I'm on now, but anytime she went into meetings where we were with upper leadership, she would literally come in like dressed to the nines with her heels and everything, looking super nice because she was blocked from a promo, not because of her skill set, not because she wasn't performing at the next level, but because people had an issue with polish. And so I was wondering, like, from you guys' perspective, if you guys have ever run into that or if that was a thing, because people also do say, so this is going back to the research, that people who look better, people who are more attractive actually get into better positions at a faster rate than people who are not attractive. And so that goes based off of looks, being someone who is, more in shape, or if they're on the heavier side, and then also how you are presenting yourself as far as what you decide to wear to work. It was showing that people who are more attractive physically and also dress a certain way, they were actually getting promotions at a higher rate or at a faster rate than people who are not as attractive. So I was just curious if you guys had ever, if what you guys' opinion was on that.
That polished comment is interesting because I don't really think of like polish from like an aesthetic. I think of polish as just you in totality. It could be like, yeah, your appearance is one aspect of it, but, how you interact with your coworkers, kind of, what mannerisms do you have, your etiquette, your work ethic. I think all of that falls into like the polished.
Or how you're communicating. Are you getting your points across effectively and speaking, your expertise effectively? That's how I think of polished as well.
Right.
I had the opposite response to when you said polished. It made me think of when I started wearing my hair natural, and my manager, who I considered my mentor at the time, would just make sly comments of, I liked it better when your hair was straighter. I think you should go back to having straighter hair. I don't think that, I could be wrong, but I doubt that that comment has ever been made to a white man. I think that if you're a white man, you can get away with being less polished. You could be brash, you could be rude, and you still get promotions. But as women, and specifically women of color, you have to tone down how you talk. You have to make sure your hair looks good. You have to make sure your clothes look good. And so that's the issue that I see with polish. Is I know that it can be how you speak to people and things like that, but I doubt that anyone has ever gone to, especially a white man, and said, we would promote you, but you need to be a little bit more polished. I think that they're accepted in their totality of how they are, and even when they're against the norm, they're accepted. I mean, again, let's go back to that person in the White House. If that was a Black woman talking about things like that, they would have never made it to that role. And so that's the issue that I have with using the term polished. That's definitely a woman thing.
I definitely agree with that women have more guidelines that they kind of need to abide by in order to get certain things. Whereas with men, it's like, oh, well, that's just, it gets passed off as something lighter than what it actually is, because Donald Trump has like made fun of people with disabilities and all type of stuff. If somebody else was doing that, that would not fly. Like, that would not fly. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, where men get away with certain stuff that women probably could not. So we alluded to promotions when we were just talking on the last point, and I'm wondering, do Black people get promoted at a lower rate? Is that a perception or is that a fact? And I'm not saying you guys have to have the research, but like based off what you've seen over the years working in the corporate space, is that a perception or is it kind of a fact that people of color are just getting promoted at lower rates?
From my perspective, I think it's a fact. Within, some friends and I looked at our coworkers and I looked at our organization, and after a specific level, you see no person of color, and it's not that we're not capable. It's just we're not being promoted. And the evidence is there. You can go to different executive boards or different companies and count on one hand how many people of color are on these boards or in a senior executive leadership. And I think it's countrywide.
I agree as well. It is a fact, and we can definitely find research behind it, because think about the last several months, right? Like, that's what this has all been about. A lot of it is a lot of people getting together and being like, hey, why are these corporations not having Black leaders at like a high level, right? And that's a promotion thing. It's not like we're not qualified. It's just because we're not getting promoted. And also I think it's just because there's so few of us already in the spaces. So it's tough. But yeah, it's definitely a fact that we are not promoted at the same levels or rate as our counterparts, 100%. And I think the past couple months shows that.
I agree. Personally, I've seen where the mentorship is a lot easier for leaders to mentor someone that they get along with, or they agree with, or they can hang out and go to lunch with, which is a lot harder to do with a Black person. Like, they may not have that connection, so they end up investing in someone they like more, and they kind of end up promoting that person because they're actually investing in their career and their growth. And I've personally seen that where it wasn't done for me, but then someone else is getting these extra trainings, extra love to say, like, to get to that next level, and they would get the promotion, but my one-on-ones would look different. Like, hey, you're doing great. Like, no specific feedback or nothing that says, hey, why don't you work on this? And why don't you do this? Nobody is like investing that like to grow your career, basically. I see the lack there.
So it sounds like maybe it's from the perspective of, I guess, lack of opportunity. So we're not given the stretch assignments even when asked for. And so are we not being promoted because we're actually not doing the stretch assignment work? So we're not doing the work to get to the next level? Or is it just because you don't have advocates behind you, basically? I guess I'm trying to find out if we're doing the work at X level, why do we even need a mentor at that point? If we're already performing at the next level, why are we just not getting our promotion?
Like personally, when I look back, it's like you don't know what it takes to get to that next level. Nobody's saying to you, you are here, and if you do X, Y, and Z, you can actually get there. They might say it like high level, but they're not giving you like a path to get there, or they're not investing in you and saying, let me show you how to do this. And then now you do this and take the time to do it at work and then present it, and they're taking it to leadership. They're not advocating for you, but they are advocating for somebody else that they like or they have a good working relationships with, and they're actually helping them get to that point. And I actually saw that personally, and I was like, so this is what it looks like. Your one-on-one is, you're doing great, thank you, you know, no issues at all, but someone else is like doing certain things that you're not doing, right? And you're like, well, I want to know how to do that, but how do you even bring that up? Like, hey, yes, I do want to be promoted, how do I get there? But nobody is telling you do X, Y, and Z, and then they're not taking that effort to the higher level and saying, this person is presenting or doing this, promote them. Like, they're not advocating.
It's a tough one.
That is an important one.
It is an important one. It's a tough one though, for me personally. I honestly don't know if I can answer that. I don't think I have enough experience in working with enough people of color firsthand to see them kind of at work, to see them do the work to get to be deserving of a promotion, and to see them being passed up for a promotion. Obviously, I have friends in different places and spaces, different industries around the world, yes, but I don't feel like I have enough to say absolutely. I think that, you know, Black people or people of color are promoted or less likely to be promoted or being promoted at slower rates. But what I will say is what I have seen is that we tend to be less likely to push for the promotion. It feels, from what I see, you know, personally, like, I'll just say that I've never not been promoted if I wanted it. I've just pushed for it, you know, whether it was, you know, if it was a manager that didn't have my back and, you know, wasn't really seeing the vision, then I went above him or her and made them see the vision. If it ended up being an issue where it was like I was getting passed over and passed over and passed over, I've gone to HR and been like, look, you know, I've been working on this for a year and a half and I've been passed over 4 quarters in a row. I'm trying to figure out what's really good here. You know, do I need to switch teams? Like, what's up? So, but I'm very aggressive in that sense because I feel like I'm responsible for my career path and trajectory. But from what I personally have seen is it feels like we're less likely to push for it and push for the advocacy because it's not going to be handed to you, especially in, you know, a lot of us on this call work, you know, for the same company. So it's like, especially in that environment, your advocacy is not going to be handed to you. You need to go get it. And if you're not getting it from the people that you feel are the invested parties, then you need to go around them, under them, over them, above them, and go get it. So that's what I personally have seen.
Well, going off what you're saying though, Brea, why are we always in the position to have to push? Why are we always in the position to have to go around underneath all this other kind of stuff in order to get the promotion? Whereas somebody who doesn't look like us don't even have to do shit. They're not even meeting the bar and they're getting a promotion. So
again, like I can't really, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut. Was someone about to speak?
No, I was just going to say that was the same point that I was going to raise is the pushing part. It doesn't seem necessary for everyone else.
Yeah, again, you know, I can't agree or disagree on that. You know, because I'm not in that other person's shoes. I'm not going to say because, you know, they're white, they have a certain privilege and they're not working as hard and pushing as hard. I don't know what so-and-so X or so-and-so Y is doing. I'm heads down focused on myself. And I feel that especially in today's times, for me, I can be incredibly hypersensitive and like overly sensitive when it comes to race. And so I'm really checking myself in this time to not default to the, oh, well, they got promoted faster because he's white or whatever. it's like, I don't know what Billy has been over there doing. Billy could have been up there busting his ass, you know, and working 15 hours a day and taking on 1,000 different projects that I wasn't privy to. I didn't know. And maybe that's why Billy got the promo over me, or got the promo faster. You know, I'm not in Billy's shoes, you know, so I don't particularly like to look to my left and my right. And I definitely don't like to default to the race. All I can say is, as Black women, the Black women that I have worked with in my career traditionally have not pushed for whatever it was that they wanted.
That's interesting. That's very interesting, because I'm not looking super intently as to what Billy or Sarah is doing, but I also know what people are doing. If we're working in the same team and we have the same job title, we're pretty aware of certain projects that people are working on based off of the check-ins that we have with our team and whatever else. So I know what mediocre work versus the next level work is, because we are within the same role and level. Now, if this person is not doing anything outside of what this role and level says, but somehow you got promoted in a year, and I've already been in this role for a year and a half, 2 years, and somehow you've been promoted coming in 1 year and you've literally only met the bar, nothing beyond that, that is me knowing what Billy or Sarah is doing, and it's not anything above the bar or worth a promotion. And if their meeting the bar is worth getting the promotion, then the next Black person meeting the bar should be worth getting the promotion, not doing 10, 12 other stretch assignments in order to get their money, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah. Go ahead. I was gonna say I definitely feel that way. I feel as though, and I can't even say I feel. I've had coworkers come to me because they've noticed it as well. Coworkers that are not Black and Black women can continually mess up and drop the ball, you know, miss deadlines, not do the bare minimum or just barely meet the minimum, and they're viewed more positively than someone like me who's working their ass off, you know, day in and day out, trying to show that I'm ready for the next step. And the other thing that I've noticed is there's no space for me to have those same kind of missteps that my coworkers may have. You know, if I drop the ball, I'm suddenly back at square one, whereas they drop the ball. It's just a learning curve, but you know, they're still on the right path. And so that's one of the things that I think is an issue when it comes to getting promoted, is I can do one misstep and, oh, see, you know what? We shouldn't have hired that Black lady. And, you know, a white coworker can mess up, and it's like, you know what, give them another chance. They're learning. This is how the process goes. I just feel like there's a lot more leeway given. So I think that's what the problem is it's like we're not allowed the same space to learn and grow and supported throughout that. I think people almost see us as a liability, and I'm going to sponsor this white person because, you know, they're not there yet, but I know I can get them there. And, you know, this Black person over here, I'm not sure that I want to sign my name to them, because, you know, if they mess up, that could be the end of it. And I think that's part of the issue with it.
Yeah, I think doing the work is one thing, right? I've seen people get promoted that are doing way less work than I am, but it's the talk. Like, can you talk the talk? Can you act the act? Are you selling yourself in a way that, you know, the people that talk the loudest, I feel like they are promoted, not so much because of the work they're doing. So I kind of seen that a lot. And then there's a culture difference. So you're Black, they're white. You may not be on the same page. Again, we're speaking two different languages. We may be expecting, hey, I'm doing the work. Why am I not getting promoted? Versus another person knows how to do the work, but they're doing the talking and they are winning the advocacy a lot more in that sense. So I feel like that helps.
Why do I feel like, you know, I'm just in like disagreement? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm cut out to be on this panel.
We need different views. We need different views.
I'm like, should I be on this panel? You know, but I think that's a part of the work. Like, the pushing is the selling of oneself. It's like, and not be be unapologetic about it. It's like, if you have to talk a good game to get to where you're trying to go, and you know that obviously it's like you have the skills, you have everything that you need in that promo doc, say for example, you've done all the different projects, you've got all the data to back it up, you've done all these wonderful things, you have all the accolades, and no one on your team can say anything ill about you. And you still need to, like, you know, schmooze it up a little bit, then that is a part of the work as well. And that's what I'm alluding to as the push.
Yeah.
It's like, because no, it's not fair. It's not a level playing field, if we're being honest. And I know that, Tierra, that's what you're getting at, right? Is no, it's not fair. I mean, if you look at, you know, Brea's work compared to Billy's work, and if we're doing the exact same job in the exact same way, we're accomplishing the exact same things, who knows, right? Who's going to get promoted first? The likelihood of it me being first, yes, I mean, yeah, sure, is probably lower. But if Billy's up here schmoozing and talking a good game, then I better damn well get good at doing that as well.
So is it better to say you have to know how to kiss up really good, and then some of us might not be good at it? Another way to word it.
That is not at all what I'm saying, because I don't kiss ass for nobody, you know, but I do show up, as I said earlier, as my authentic self. And that is a part of Brea, is I sell myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a salesperson, but I sell myself first and foremost. So that's a piece of the work, though. And I think, to be fair, it's something that white people use to their advantage. And it goes back to the earlier point about being in the interview process and, you know, white people kind of getting that in quicker than, say, Black people, but just based off the sheer fact that they, you know, are alums from the same university, or they both love, you know, racquetball, or whatever it is. It's like, we need to be doing that more. And that, to me, has always been a frustration, especially when it comes to women and women of color. It's like, that is, use that to your advantage. It's like, if you gotta, you know, schmooze and whatever, do that shit so you can get to where you're trying to go, get there, and then, you know, go from there. But it's not enough to say that, well, my work should speak for itself and I should be promoted just based on my work. No, that's not the world that we live in.
No, I completely agree. You have to advocate for yourself. You're not gonna be able to work in a corner and do your work and then, oh, I should promote them, if you're not fighting and advocating for yourself. They're just gonna leave you in that corner to do your work because you're quiet and you're getting shit done, you know. But I have a different perspective. The previous company I worked at, there was the CIO was a Black male, Morehouse grad, and the senior VP of supply chain was a Black female. And they were promoting a lot of people of color within their organization. I mean, both organizations like the Rainbow Coalition. And the people around them were absolutely brilliant. And there was a lot of flack from the white counterpart because of the number of people, Black people in their organizations that they were hiring. They're like, oh, how come there's not a lot of white people in your organization? And so you get the opposite. You know, here's these brilliant Black people promoting other brilliant Black and brown people, and the white people didn't like it. And so it's kind of like, you advocate for yourself, you know, who can you make happy? You know, either side is not going to be happy on what each other is doing. It seems like.
It's like, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
So you might as well do whatever's going to work best in your favor.
Right. Yeah.
Very true. So ladies, do you guys feel like your work is valued? Do you feel like your opinions at work are valued? Do you feel like when you're in meetings, the things that you're bringing to the table are well received? And have you ever been the victim of someone actually stealing an idea that you had that you knew could be very impactful for your team